Hello and welcome to another edition of the Talking Basketball podcast. I am Mark.
And I'm Eliott.
Yes, we've got Eliott back in the studio with us today. Paul is still recovering from his teeth, and we're going to be covering the Basketball League of Great Britain and some other unusual events that are around the basketball world. So strap yourselves in. It's going to be an interesting one. And Eliott is promising he's not going to talk about the bathroom and his antics that he's been having going on.
Well, lucky it's not smell-o-vision because at the moment we haven't got a shower. So.
Oh man. Oh, okay. Thank God. I thought that was me. So the BBL this week, we've had 8 games this week, and up until this last week, it's been sort of 6 games usually that gets played, and then they had a week off for international play. Then they had 1 week where they were doing the All-Star, so they only had 1 game played. So they're almost playing a little bit of catch-up. Yeah. But they also have the playoffs coming up within 3 weeks, I think it is. Yep. The playoffs are going to be starting.
Far off.
So they're just trying to wind everything up. But they've had a little bit of stopping and starting. Plus they had the, I was going to call it the in-season tournament, but they had the...
Oh, the trophy.
The trophy
as well.
Right at the beginning of January. So they just stopped everything for that. So the season sort of stops and starts a little bit, which... personally, I won't say I have criticism for that, but I find it very difficult as someone who's following to know when is the next game.
Sometimes it does lose its flow almost, doesn't it?
It does. And, you know, we've had with the local league team recently, Division 3 Portsmouth Force, they've just wrapped up their last home game.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago now. And after doing that, it's a case of, oh, when are you playing again?
Yeah.
September.
Sort of twiddling your thumbs until then.
And you know, we all know that basketball has that and football has that as well.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's just a very extended time period, it seems, with basketball. It's like 7 months on and like 5 off.
It seems like it's even longer. I think, especially when you've got a team that are pushing for the playoffs, if you don't then get into that playoffs and just extend your season by that few more games, it does seem like an abrupt end. And
I mean, the good news is we won't hear about Wemby now until like October.
Yeah, the Spurs are done.
Yeah, Spurs are done. So as soon as they're done, it's like, don't have to worry about that. We won't have Wemby on every single NBA post going out.
He'll get his Rookie of the Year trophy, and that'll be him done until next September.
Do you know, I saw a stat today. It was like 236 blocks or something like that he's had so far. He's had more blocks than something like 85% of most NBA players ever.
Isn't there some ridiculous stat like he's had more blocks than NBA teams this season?
Yes, yeah. But these are people like stats ever. So in their lifetime of being an NBA player, he's got higher stats than 85% of ever NBA players.
And I'm sure he's got more, what is it they call them? Stocks, so steals and blocks.
Yes.
Than Gobert did in his Defensive Player of the Year season.
I mean, there's a flag on that one for me, but I'm not a massive Ruby fan. But quite.
Some crazy stuff with him.
There is some interest. I saw a good one from Shaq this week, actually. I know we're talking NBA, but they said, what would you, if you could go learn from any player now? He said, who would you want to learn from? He said, Ben Simmons. I want to learn how I can play 55 games and get 80 million.
That's an awful lot of money to be sat on a bench.
It is. And I don't know why Ben worries why people don't like him very much. It's like, that's called the Grant Hill effect. Like, go speak to Grant. Like, he wasn't very popular for a long time.
It took him a long time to get it back.
Yeah, it did. And, you know, no one wants injury.
No.
Of course, no one wants injury, but at the same time, if you're not taking a knee, so to speak, on your salary, that hurts teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
That massively hurts them. And I think we're doing an episode coming up on that. So on sports injuries and stuff, purely because Paul's like, you know, I may have had an injury or two. So, I think we're going to be doing something on that. Would be interesting. Right, let's crack on with the BBL anyway. So, 8 games. I watched half of them the whole game through. And I was quite proud of that this week. It's Easter in the UK here, so bit of time off, bit of daddy daycare, which means once my daughter's gone to sleep, put a game on. That's been fun, but you picked up on something straight away about the highlights.
So strangely enough, I did try to watch several of the games live as well. The very first one, Newcastle Eagles against Caledonia, it was a relatively late start and I was just tired. Got to the end of the third quarter and I thought, I'm not going to be able to stay up for this one. So I'm going to come back and either watch the rest tomorrow or watch the highlights. Decided to watch the highlights because I thought, I've watched 3/4 of the game. We'll see what the highlights are like. And with 1 minute 23 left on the clock, the video just stopped. There wasn't the normal sort of summary of the game where the commentators talk about, you know, the best player of the game. They look at the stats and what have you.
Nothing.
It just literally, I didn't know what the score was. I had to ask in the comments what was the final score of the game, and then go back and watch the end of the what was the live feed to actually see what the final score was.
And I showed you last
you were
minute.
watching, and it's of
that
all
last
the time
minute
to cut out.
Yeah.
That last minute and 23 seconds or whatever it was.
50 seconds left. It was 81-82. And that last minute, it just went silly.
Yeah.
So many mistakes, so many blood. I mean, we literally just talking about
Yeah.
it before we kicked off. But I mean, I won't say get into the game, but I actually just put that it was just Caledonia leading. They led from the start. The second half, they kind of brought it back in. Newcastle was sort of trying to level peg it by Q3. That's where and Jordan Johnson, obviously, that huge three made a massive difference. The Eagles would sort of that pushed them up into that. I think it was early in the fourth. They just got ahead. It was like by a point or two. You thought, okay, this is where it's going to go interesting. But no, Caledonia just carried on, just chipping. It
yo-yoed right up until that last minute and 23, as it turns out, with so exchanging the lead with those 2 points. But
if you said 81-82, Caledonia only up by 1, there's 50 seconds left, you think, okay, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
Then they foul Quade Green.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, he's got like an 85% shot rating or something like that. He literally goes to the line, hits both of them. Okay, so now it's not 81-82, it's 81-84. There's a 3-point game here. What are you going to do? And at this point, they've still got, what was it?
It's good 45 seconds left.
Yeah, it was a reasonable amount of time. They threw it down, and you thought, okay, they're going to shift the ball and maybe try and extend the lead a little bit, give a safe point, get an extra 2. Throw it into the corner. I don't actually know who it was. They threw out the worst shot I've ever seen. Just that terrible 3 that it was basically an air ball.
Yeah.
And then you look for Newcastle back on the attack. Okay, they could get something in here. And what happens? They try to get, I think Johnson had the ball, but he kicked it out. And the player just went to go up to the hoop and went, no. Came back and then did some Kobe, Dirk Nowitzki kind of turnaround, fade away.
He was up against Moore Jr., wasn't he? He knew he wasn't going to get a shot off easily.
Because that's it, because he went in, didn't he?
Yeah,
He went in as if he's like, I'm going to, oh no.
Yeah. Drew the big man, brought him outside. But that
shot
at
selection
that point, you're
was
thinking,
terrible.
There's got to be a mismatch. There's got to be someone that you can swing the ball to. You've brought the big man out to the 3-point line.
Yeah.
Somebody is mismatched somewhere.
No one crashed in there.
No,
and no one made cuts, and no one made themselves available to him. So I get that he probably went, we've got not much time on the shot clock, but also not much time on the game clock.
Yeah.
But that shot was terrible. It was a really bad forced.
At that stage of the game, you don't want the ball in the hands of someone who doesn't want the ball.
No.
So those players that weren't making the cuts weren't making themselves available.
And the second that he went up against Clifton Moore Jr. and then went, oh no, and then backed out and went to the 3, it's like he's already got you.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to shoot. So someone on his team should have said, I need to make myself just cut. All they had to do, the lane was free.
And at that stage, I'm sure, I can't remember exactly, but I know that Newcastle were in the bonus, foul penalties.
Yeah, and they were, and this was at Newcastle as well.
Yeah.
So they got all the fans going for them.
Yeah, so you think just try and draw a foul. If you're not going to make the basket, at least get those free throws and try and score something.
So they managed to get something up, and I don't know what the maneuver was, but they managed to get a bucket up. He should have got the bucket in, but for some reason he missed.
Was that McGill?
Yeah, and he missed that layup.
Yeah.
And so he went to the line. You think, okay, go to the line here.
Got a chance to get it within 1.
Sink the first shot. The second one, if you can do a kind of well placed,
bounce at front rim,
bounce it off Luca-esque something or other. Just do something. If not, even just sink the second one.
Yeah.
First one chokes it. It's like, mate, that you've just lost it.
Yeah, it's game over now.
That's game over now. And they only had like 17 seconds or something left. Yeah. And then hits the second. Okay, fine. That's where the Eagles ended up.
Yeah.
But then why, when there's still 17 or something on the on the game clock,
So it's time to get something back.
you can at least get. I mean, look, what did T-Mac get? Was it 11 points in 30 seconds or something stupid?
It's more. I'm sure it was. Wasn't it 13 in 31 seconds or
Yeah,
something?
it was some ridiculous thing. And you go, right, none of you are T-Mac. Let's just get that straight out. But at the same time, can you score 5 points in 17 seconds? Yes.
Yep.
Could you at least have tied the game?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
you could.
doable. It's an effort.
And you could have done that despite the fact that you choked and missed a really important shot when someone else had the same opportunity at the other end, and Quade Green, now both of them extended leads. You go, he hit the clutch, you didn't. And also, McGill was normally really good, like you said.
He's normally a good finisher. He's normally someone you want with seconds to go and a point down.
Playing at home.
You want the ball in his hands.
Yeah, and he just choked. That first shot, he looked like he rushed it. I don't know. But anyway, so that game, the bit that they cut off, the highlight,
was possibly the best bit
was
of
the
game.
highlight of the whole game. It's like first, second, third. Yeah, they're even teams. I mean, you said it best with the Caledonia have just got so much depth.
Yeah,
they can just bring people out.
Yeah,
they just bring people out.
Any substitute they bring in, it's not a downgrade on the person they're taking out the game. It's just a change.
No,
just a fresh pair of legs.
You just look at anyone as around and go, who's that going to the line? Oh, Whelan's going to the line. Well, he's going to nail them. Okay, who's going to the line? You've got Quade Green. He's going to nail those. Oh, someone they're making a fast break. That's all right. Clifford Jr.'s on defence. But like they can just keep wheeling players out.
And they've got players in every position as well.
And Newcastle have too. But it was funny. They were clawing and it looked like they were going to take the lead, but Caledonia went, no.
I think Taj Green was a bit quiet in that game.
He was very quiet that game.
I wonder whether that is a bit of a sort of post All-Star, he's gone off the boil a bit.
Oh, I don't know, because on the next game that they played against, where did I bet it down? Where were they? Against Leicester.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he was good for that.
I wonder what in that he may well be the coach and back office had a good word with him and said, need to turn it on. Or
do you know what? I mean, look, that Caledonia game, Clifton Moore Jr. didn't score very high.
No,
he wasn't a massive scorer. I don't do the stats. He always does that. But but I know that he wasn't high scoring on that game. However, what he puts in with the bodies on it, it's like, the Dennis Rodman, he got 0 points in like 6 games.
And got 35 rebounds.
It's like, if you're going to do something, do it properly.
Yeah.
That's
do
fine.
It well.
And that's Clifford Moore Jr. does so well.
You know that he's always going to be giving you 12 to 15 rebounds a game. He's setting some really good screens, so he's getting other players open. There are games where, he doesn't need to score. If he's setting those screens well and getting the guards open for shots, then he can drop 10 points that he'd normally score if he's getting an extra 10 points scored by the guards.
But it was a really, if you want an example of this, I'm not saying like game of the week, but if you want to see, these are two strong teams that are going against each other and
fighting for that second,
third. Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out because of where they sit in the league. You're trying to stay away from London as far as you can. Yeah. When you going through the first round, they'll probably do that. Then the second round, you want to just stay away as far as you can to the
best
semis,
you can,
and just keep away from it. In that first spot, obviously it's London, but then you've got Cheshire, then you've got Caledonia, and then Newcastle are up there as well. They're all fighting.
Yeah.
They're all within a point, 2 points of each other, and a couple of wins. Some have got games in hand. I mean, so that was an important one for Caledonia. They needed to keep that one, which they did. And having a road win's got to help them.
Yeah, even though it was only a relatively short trip for them, but
yes, it was. But that was a good game. But massive fail on dropping out the last minute of play, which was absolutely crucial in that game.
But strangely enough, it's not the only one they did it in.
No,
because we had the same situation in the next game with Plymouth v Cheshire.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you watched that game live, didn't you? So this one, I again watched the first half live, but then wasn't able to watch the second half. Cheshire just seemed so much stronger than Plymouth coming out the gate.
I actually put down Wiley's alley-oop. That was really, really nice one.
Yeah,
it was a really, really slick move, and it wasn't. Sometimes when you see an alley-oop and it looks a little bit not forced, but you think, it's a bit clockwork. Like, there's space, there's an alley-oop. It still looks impressive, but that looked just like a very smooth play.
They do seem to be able to get that in the first quarter, Plymouth,
like
quite
a transitioning
often.
sort of move. Yeah, really
in,
nice.
in like maybe 3 or 4 minutes into the game, people are starting to get a bit loose, starting to relax into it a bit, and they seem to get that backdoor cut from Wiley and
Well, it was
Eliott.
14-26 going into the Q2, and you think 8-point game, 12-point game. Maybe that's not as indicative as the start that it was. Cheshire started slow, and then just by the end of that quarter, they just found their rhythm. And that was pretty much it. That's pretty much. I think Q4 I've put down 55-78 Q4 start. That really sort of says it all.
It does.
And you've got
Plymouth,
a 23-point lead, and you go into. I mean, that's. I'm not saying not a low scoring game, but if you've got 55 and you go into Q4,
it's not your standard BBL scoreline.
Well, it's not the only one that does that this week. No.
But Aaron Wright, I think in that fourth quarter, sort of decided that enough was enough. There, Plymouth were trying to make a run for it, but Wright showed his class and showed why he's up there, sort of pushing for that MVP
buzzer beater, the 3-point buzzer beater at the very, very end.
Of quarter 3
of the Q3. By Jager. That was cool, but honestly not fruitless. But after that, Q4 all over. Done. That's it. And if you think of it, they went in at 78 in Q4, then ended on 102. So they're only putting like 26 points in, 24 points on in their quarter. That's all they had to do. Whereas they're really putting on 24. So it was almost an even Q4.
Yes,
But they just put the foot down. Yeah, they just don't need to do that.
It's a real shame because I've got a soft spot for Plymouth. I do like them as a team.
Do you know what? I think that's a universal thing. I think a lot of people in the league like it, and they like the pavilions, and obviously none of that's going to be there anymore, and as of next year. So yeah, it seems a shame. I mean, they lost their big guy.
Yes, early, well, it's fairly early in the season, was it, pal?
Yeah, it was only 2 or 3 weeks in, maybe.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's Mason Faulkner, I believe.
Yes,
isn't it? And he's back in the States now and getting surgery and stuff. So obviously, wish him well. But he was a massive.
It was a big,
massive unit. So they felt that, and then obviously, if you've got someone that big, you're building your offense around that.
And if you've built your team around them and you lose them, it's difficult for somebody else to either slot back into their position. Wiley is a big man, but he plays a different game.
He's not a Mason Faulkner, big man.
Yeah, he's a cutting, run into the basket, driving off the ball.
Faulkner's a body.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and different
they
style
missed
types.
that. And if you have, I mean, it's funny because why don't you say Cheshire? Have they got big bodies? They've got some bodies
in the wrong places. You've got Skylar White out on the 3-point line rather than under the basket. But
but they did. If you said Patriots versus Cheshire, and it's going to be at least sort of 33 point difference, you go, that's kind of what I
it's expected.
It's not really one end of the spectrum to the other. You're not going to.
No. You've got what second place compared to bottom.
No, and I don't think they're a bogey team, particularly for Cheshire as well.
Not for Cheshire. A few of the teams in the league seem to struggle with them. But I think it's because the Patriots do play quite a fast game, and teams sometimes struggle to keep up with their pace. They've got some good ball handling guards, and it is. I think they are a team that can cause issues for other teams,
and they have this week.
But then again, Cheshire are a team that are also, they've got Rideau, they've got Aaron Wright, they've got some fast guys in there as well that can keep up with it.
They can afford someone to have a bad game.
True, because somebody else will step up.
Yeah, and that's when you see the Eagles, you see Caledonia, you see Cheshire, you see London. At any one time, they can have a player out. They can have someone who's not having a bad game. Someone's just, they're not feeling it. Doesn't matter.
No,
we got a deep team. We're fine.
You're
not in it. You're not feeling it today. Okay, it's just the way it is. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So that's into that one. Sharks versus Leicester. Now, I actually watched part of the promo build-up they did on this, because they were bigging up the fact that Sheffield Sharks and Leicester Riders have a very intense rivalry. I knew that was the case. But when you then start saying, well, this coach has been there for a while, this person's been there for a while, and you go, do you know what? Actually, the more you think about it,
it goes back longer than you think.
It goes back, and it's not just a case of a historic. Oh, this is 30 years ago. This is, during the war. This is actually, for the last 10, they've been banging heads for the last 10 years. And these coaches are coming up against each other. And even during the season, they were doing snippets. Game 1 that happened, this game 2 this happened, game 3 anything. And so total credit to BBL with the way they did that, because you think, okay, you're educating people to say, there's a rivalry here. This is why there's a rivalry, and look at why this game will matter to them.
Yeah.
So if you then look in where they are in the league, the Sharks versus Leicester, they're not, I say not a million miles away from each other. But if you said, who would you bet your lunch money on? You're pretty much going to put it on Leicester, to be fair.
Yeah, this season, definitely.
Yeah.
Sheffield, although they are mid-table, I think they've underperformed this year compared to what you'd expect of them.
Yeah, I think that's a very kind way of putting it. They've shown some really, there's been a couple of games where you think they've got a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's people there that you think you can do something, but for some reason, they're just in the middle.
When you watch their games and then look at their standings, the number of times I've seen a game, especially with the games that they've won this season, and I'm really confused as to why they're not higher in the table. They seem to go up against good teams and play well, go up against teams that possibly aren't so good and struggle against them.
Yeah. And they've also got that horrific grey kit that Paul loves, but I can't bear it.
That kit's fine in the first quarter. As soon as it gets the slightest bit sweaty,
I just don't like it. It looks like someone gave up. They went, what about a silvery kind of, no, it just looks like it was white and someone put a black sock in there and it's gone that weird grey, but not the nice heather grey. Or
it's funny, I forget his name now, the guy from Hooping and Looting was on something the other day and he said it looks like the kit when you've forgotten your PE kit for school and you have to pick something out of the lost property.
Oh yes, he was on the Bristol's podcast.
Yes, that's where I saw.
Yeah. No, he was right. Yeah, he was definitely right. It's just, it was like there was an attempt. I saw what you were trying to do, but it just didn't. No, it didn't work that time.
You see where they're going with it. Not quite made it.
Yeah, it's just a shame really, because you think the Sharks, the Shark Tank. But anyway, so they were playing at Shark Tank and they were playing Leicester, and there's this nice rivalry. Leicester had just a tragic start. It was just sloppy turnovers, just flopping around,
which is unusual for them.
Yeah. So you were mentioning about Plymouth being a fast team. Leicester are a very quick team, especially when Kimball McKenzie's on.
Yeah.
He gets that ball straight up. He wants speed in the game.
He's either running the ball up the court at speed or finding that quick outlet pass to,
which automatically for me would mean play him slow, because he will hate that and it will drive him mad. And I think that's what happened in a way, because they just couldn't get that rhythm to start. Sheffield just quietly started knocking the points. Yeah. And they kept that lead sort of up Q1 and then going into the Q2, but then Leicester started just putting their foot down a bit. Pipkins had a massive 3-pointer, which kept them sort of within, I think it was 5 points, I think, by halftime.
Yeah.
I mean, that I can't emphasize much how I think Pipkins is not undervalued on the team, but they really need to bolster around him.
Absolutely. They need to do what they can to keep him, because I think if he was to slot into, say, for example, Cheshire that we were talking about a minute ago, if you had LaQuincy Rideau, Pipkins and Aaron Rye, that would be a near impossible to guard backcourt, because you've got speed, skill, you've got shooting from range, you've got someone who can make a cut and score, get to the basket and score pretty much at will. It's a real difficult
I think it's going to be difficult coming to the end of the season anyway, because a lot of people are going to be listening to obviously us, but all of the stats and the things from the league, and looking at players thinking they could be handy in this Euro team, that Euro team, And I know that the BBL are very conscious of trying to not make the BBL almost a feeder league.
Yeah. But then even within the BBL, you get a lot of movement in the off-season. The number of players that have been at 5-6 different teams, when you think you've only got 10 teams in the league, and players can have played for half of those teams, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, you were saying earlier about like Wheeling and stuff going up in Caledonia, and you had the Lions connection, and then you'll see another player to pop up and you think, well, hang on, weren't they at? Oh no, they were somewhere else. Someone else has poached them. But you're also going to get the people just going to Europe. I think they're money-wise, that's going to make a big difference.
I think removing the salary cap, increasing the salary cap in the BBL has had a bit of an effect. Don't get me wrong, it's the clubs that have got the money behind them, obviously it's had more of an effect on them.
Might help them,
but it's got to be a bit of a draw for those players that might be considering Europe to possibly come to the BBL instead. If they know, right, fine, I might not get those earnings in my first season there, but the potential is to get to one of those other teams and get the money in future seasons.
Yeah, I think it would be lovely if there was double the amount of.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I was looking at it yesterday. I think it was because I could hear the football was playing.
Oh, okay.
And I just looked up why is this football game so loud? Because it was really annoying me. It's like literally you just put your daughter to sleep and it's like, why are they chanting? It's like 8 o'clock. Shut up, please. But in the league there's 20 teams in that league.
Yeah.
And then you think, hang on a minute, how many leagues are there? So I literally just went down a little rabbit hole of how many teams are in a football, and I don't really follow it. So I was like, that's what we need. Like at minimum, they need 15. Yeah,
I think if you could increase the number of teams by say 2 teams a year for the next 4 or 5 years, it doesn't have to be a sudden influx of teams, but building up so that you have got those 20 teams in the BBL.
They need to have at least 2 more in there by next year. And like that has to be a minimum.
Like yourself and Paul were talking about the other week, get that north-south divide where you don't have to. So don't get me wrong, it's nothing like they have in the States where they've got those road trips that last a week and you've got thousands of miles to travel. However, traveling from, say, Plymouth to Glasgow for a game, it takes it out of your system, especially when you're doing it via coach or train or however it is. I don't know whether the guys do fly, however it is they travel.
I mean, they won't be able to get a decent pasty up in Glasgow as well, and that will probably punish them.
But yeah, you would potentially reduce the amount of travel they have to do if you were to say, right, you play the teams that aren't in your conference, whether it's north or south, you play them twice a season, but then you play your southern teams, for example, 4 times in the season, the same as they do in the NBA.
I was about to say, you're saying the NBA divisions basically, aren't they?
Yeah, effectively.
So, like Orlando and Miami will play each other like 4 times in the year, whereas the other teams only play twice.
But it builds up even more rivalry because you've got more of a chance to see those teams that are close to you. So you're also more likely to go to those games because they're not as far away.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a great... BBL, if you're listening, you're welcome.
Just throw those ideas out there.
Yeah. So, going back to the Sharks Leicester anyway. So it was a sloppy game. Just no one found their rhythm. And that's what was surprising me. I was literally looking at the table earlier because, when you look at Leicester and where Sheffield are, they are literally a point difference.
Yeah, right up there with each other.
I don't associate that way. No. Because of how strong Leicester have been over the last 3 or 4 years and how strong they've been since Teddy Buckets sort of joined them, and he's really sort of lifted the team. They've gelled. They've just suddenly sort of hit and off they go. I just find that really surprising how well Sheffield have carried on just consistently chipping away at that ladder. And it just shows, doesn't it? If you just keep consistent, they're only 1 win away from each other.
But I think it also shows the division almost between the league. It's you've got obviously
there's a top, a middle, and a
bottom. So you've got London up there on their own effectively.
Yeah.
You've then got 6 teams that are all sort of not there and thereabouts fighting away with each other, and then 2 or 3 teams at the bottom that are just struggling.
It's like a first class, a business class, a premium economy, and then like baggage.
In the hold.
Yeah, exactly. And credit to these teams because when you look at that, you think there's a rivalry. They got a point difference apart. That, you know, that win would have made a difference with either of the teams. When you got to the end of Q3, it was end to end that game, and they both picked up the skirts, and Sheffield had stayed consistent, but they were keeping up with Leicester, and Leicester just sort of went on the charge. Yeah. But then Q4, it just kicked off, and it was like 66 each. I think 66 each or 65, 66 at the beginning of Q4. And then by the end of it, Leicester had just pulled away by 3 points.
Again, I think I wouldn't say it's depth. Offensively, Leicester are a better team than Sheffield. But defensively, Sheffield are a better team than Leicester. So when they go 100%. Up against each other, it makes for a good game.
Yes,
you've got a team that are, like we were saying, fast, offensive-minded against a team that are slower paced and more defensive minded.
85-88, 3-point game, and the score is high enough that you go, okay, everyone's getting at least 20 points a quarter, but there's also stops, there's blocks, there's steals, people are trying, like you say, it's a very overall an even game. There's lots of round numbers. Everyone might be getting 15, 17, 18 points, that sort of thing, 4 or 5 rebounds, you know, just nice tidy numbers. But the only disadvantage of games like that is if you love the game or if you're invested in that game, they're good to watch because they're end to end. If not, it can be a bit like watching football when no one's scoring.
Yeah, I get that.
Where it's just someone goes on offense, they score. Okay, great. Someone goes on another offense, they score, and they're using the clock. So they're using about 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah, they're not taking those quick shots.
They're not taking just up. And that was the surprising thing.
Right.
That's what I think why Leicester was sort of held back a bit, because the Sharks seemed to use their defence to slow that pace. Yep. Sometimes, you know, Mackenzie wanted to try and pick it up, and you could tell he was really sort of trying to charge it in there. But they really sort of went more at their pace.
Well, they've been patient on defence as well, not 100%. Trying to get that steal, just trying to contain rather than get possession.
So I mean, it was an interesting game to watch because, like you say, offensively, I would normally have gone, Leicester would beat them easily, but actually it wasn't. There was nothing easy about that win. They ground that out.
Playing the slow game against Leicester defensively, I can see why you do it with Mackenzie, but with Teddy Allen, Teddy Buckets, you're playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette, because if the ball gets into his hands, he doesn't play fast. He manages to get those shots off.
Okay, but is he like a Kawhi player then? Where Kawhi, people say, is very slow, but I don't think Kawhi's slow at all.
No,
I think Kawhi just has his first step, or his intentional step, is just that split second quicker. So he puts his step and he's past you. Yeah. By the point you go, oh, he went that way. But he's not fast in his movements. No, he's very considered and very calculated.
Well, we were saying this before we started the game. He's one of those players that if you were to watch his highlights, you think, is he actually good at basketball or is he just lucky? Yeah. Because sometimes he looks like he's completely lost control of the ball, regains it, takes a shot falling out of bounds, and perfect swish. And you're like, if I'd done that in a game, my coach would have taken me off the court. Yeah,
his ball control is questionable sometimes. There's some people on his team who definitely I'd let them lead the ball up. Yeah. And when they pass it to him, they must be like, is he going to fumble it?
But then I also wonder whether it's just that he's so confident with his ball control that, like you were saying, it's not necessarily that he's faster than the defender, but he knows when he's got the defender's feet crossed, right, that's the point where I need to then go. When that defender's got their weight on their left foot rather than their right, that's when I'm then going to go to my right and just get around them. So it's not the speed of step.
And
exactly that.
And like you said, the confidence in yourself. I know where I'm putting the ball. Yeah.
And he gets to his spot and he gets his shots off so frequently and at such a high percentage.
Yes. So that's the thing that I think I was more impressed with, the percentage, because he's not jacking up loads and loads of shots. He's taking a good selection on his shots.
But he is a rhythm player as well. I have seen games where he starts off badly and you think, oh, he's going to have a terrible game. Look at the stats at the end. He scored 32 points. How? Like in the first quarter, all I saw was him miss shots. But then somehow he's managed to score 32 come the end of the game. And
I am surprised the amount of either like tragic bricks or air balls, not Teddy Allen specifically, but a lot of the games I've seen this week, there's been some horrific shots
and some strange shot selection. You're thinking that
very poor shot selection, very forced.
Yes.
I think that it was almost there were panicked shots. I've got to get something up and just taking a shot, and you think, oh God, I wouldn't do that.
Is it that time of the season that guys are, again, trying to make sure that they're getting that good position going into the playoffs? Are they panicking not just about their position in the playoffs, but panicking play by play?
Maybe, but I'd like to hope not, because if you think now, if we look at how many games, and bear in mind, obviously, the NBA has more teams. The NBA has a much larger league, blah, 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 all very exciting. But how many games would you say, for example, in the BBL have been played as an average?
What, per week?
No, just games played total in the championship to date.
30-something?
Yep, 32.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised I was that close. I was trying to do a bit of quick maths there.
That's it, 32.
Yeah, it seems like nothing, does it?
So when you look at that and you look at a schedule and you think, okay, well, where are we at? Where are the NBA teams at this point? You think, they're a little bit above that sort of thing. You're like, where?
So how many games are they playing in the season then? Is it 40?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I guess if there's 10 teams, each playing each other 4 times, yeah.
That'll be 40.
That'll be my quick maths.
10 times 4. Look at him. Not just a pretty face. But, yeah, I just... Should you be that tired after that many games?
But then I don't know whether it's physical tiredness or just sort of emotional panicking that they're getting towards the end of the season thinking, right, we've got to push ourselves for that final run into the playoff. But yeah, I don't know. Without speaking to those players and finding out.
We'll just put it in another way. The NBA, let's take, I'm just going to look at the Celtics because, I can't talk about them. Let's give someone who's had a terrible rep, let's give them some props. Pistons. 13 wins, 62 losses. I mean, obviously, they're probably not happy about that, but that's 75 games.
Yeah, it's a lot of games played.
Yeah, Celtics, same thing, 75 games. The BBL have played 32.
Yeah.
And they've had 1 month more.
Yes, true. The in-season tournament started a month before, but the in-season tournament was only.
There was only the 2 main brackets at the and that weren't a double counted game.
Yeah, so
and then they made all the other games. They're all counted.
So they're not. Yeah, there's only a week and a half then that were non-NBA games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
and they played. And when there was so they did that with their in-season cup, whereas the cup everything was put on hold.
Yeah, the trophy was for a month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, but then I guess that balances out the time, so that the BBL starting earlier, they did that because they knew that they had a month where they weren't going to be playing games, so they've effectively got that time in hand before.
It's interesting how they did it. If you double the teams right now, they wouldn't do it that way.
No, you think it'd be?
I don't think they could.
Yeah, or they'd probably have to do it the same as the in-season tournament, wouldn't they? Have the games count towards the league.
The way they did that was fantastic, and I know everyone moaned about the courts and stuff. I think Paul really likes the. Oh, I want to say it was Brooklyn or it was someone like Utah. They had one of them had a really pale court, and I know he really likes that one. I like the Chicago one where it's bright red, just vivid,
really vibrant.
Yeah, it was a bit of a face punch on the telly, but. You thought, oh, okay, this is the in-season tournament game. Yeah. It was something immediately.
It's different.
It's different. They could mute it a little bit, I agree, but having a special court, and then this is a double bubble game.
Yeah,
I like that. I think that's really good because it made people really go for it.
But I think the courts were part of the fanfare around the whole thing, weren't they? It was make it different, make it stand out, give them different kits, different courts.
Yeah. And the kits were a win as well. They knocked it out of the park, and in credit to the BBL when they did their trophy, the way they did it, I liked how it worked out, and obviously Cheshire did really well at the end, and it was exciting to watch, and the actual quality of basketball was good.
It was really good.
It was really, really good quality basketball. The only downside was that it was confusing because it suddenly stopped at the end of January, and then at the beginning of March, bang, it's back up again.
Yeah.
And it just confused people, and they went, "Oh, wow, it's back again now, is it? Okay, yeah, no, we're straight back into it."
I think some people that were watching games during the trophy didn't necessarily know that they were trophy games. You're watching it because it wasn't. Don't get me wrong; they changed like the colours of the icons and stuff for the month.
Yeah.
But unless you're invested and you're watching those games and watching, a bit of the backstory and understand what's going on, people could have been watching those games thinking they were just regular season games up, without
100%. 100%.
Obviously, other than the finals, where that was the semis and the finals, where you had that weekend where the games were all being played. I forgot where it was now. Birmingham, wasn't it? They played those.
Yes. Yeah.
And they, don't get me wrong, the Utilita Arena was set up really nicely for it. The music and the shows were all great, and that made you aware that it was a completely different tournament that was being played.
Well, that in-season tournament, incidentally, the episode that we did on it as a guide was the most popular show so far today. Yeah, it's like 4,500.
Oh, nice
streams so far. And literally that just rocketed out when we did it, because one thing that the NBA didn't do well was explain.
Yes.
They didn't understand. A lot of people didn't understand what it meant, or the double bubble or anything like that. So that was why it was nice that we got a little bit of a push there. Anyway, let's get back to the BBL. Let's get back to that. So that Sharks-Leicester game, I mean, Leicester won it. Credit to them, but it was not the right game. It just was end to end. And that's pretty much how it went. However, the next game was Scorchers versus Caledonia. And that was not the game I was expecting it to be, because that was at Surrey, and I was expecting just Caledonia to walk that, quite frankly, given where Surrey are in the league. Caledonia, I believe, literally, I've just put this away. Why I do this to myself sometimes. If you think Caledonia are third, and Surrey Scorchers are eighth, and the differences is, there's like 7-game wins difference between them. So it's not vast.
No, but Caledonia are trying to push for that second spot, aren't they?
Well, if you say there's 40 games, we've just said, so effectively let's just double to make the equivalency in the NBA. That would be a 14 game.
Yeah.
Which is a big slide.
Yeah, that is a big swing.
So you would expect Caledonia are playing away. Is it Surrey in Sports Park? You think, all right, okay, they've got an away game. It might be tough.
One of the longest road trips, isn't it?
One of the longer road trips for them, definitely. And the score was 89-95. Caledonia took the win, but Surrey absolutely just flew out at the start. They made that game, and they controlled the tempo. It was 26-20 going into Q2. So the Scorchers were up against Caledonia. Now, I didn't expect that.
And they didn't do it in their traditional live and die by the three-point shot.
No,
don't get me wrong. They scored some, but they weren't. I've seen several games this season. Again, Surrey being a relatively local team, I do like seeing their games, and I do like them as a team. I don't like the just jack up three-pointers all over the place mentality that a lot of basketball teams have. They are good shooters, so they're a team that you don't mind doing it from time to time. But this was a game where I don't know whether it was an intentional to try and not playing mind games, but psychologically to have a bit of a different outlook when going up against Caledonia, because they're a relatively big team. They like using their big men.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I wonder whether they went in thinking, right, let's just not play to our strengths necessarily, but try and utilize their weaknesses against them, right?
I agree. I think if you were looking at the game and you watched it going through, you can see that pattern of Caledonia were expecting or anticipating we're going to lean on those big guys, and that's how we're going to run our game, and we're expecting them to be hitting threes. So they almost went out, were quite, I won't say stoic, but that was their approach.
Yeah.
And the Scorchers went, we're not going to do our normal game.
Yeah, moved the ball well.
Yeah.
Scored a lot of mid-range shots as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the third quarter, it came down, and Caledonia got within, I think, like 4 points, and I thought at this point they should not be in that position.
No. Again, I wonder if it comes back to how much of a home court advantage it seems to be in the BBL this year. The home teams do seem to, even going up against the bigger teams in the league, or better teams in the league, sorry, they do seem to be able to push all the way through the game, whereas in other leagues in the world, it doesn't seem to be as much of an impact on how the teams play.
Well, it's funny you say that, because then going into the fourth, Caledonia then just pressed and they just got ahead.
Yeah.
And you think, well, okay, that's it now. They've just put the foot down a little bit. We've seen quite a few over this season of teams where they get to the fourth, that's when they put the foot down and off they go. That's what I was expecting. And actually, there was it was Cooper who hit that massive three in the corner and took them a point up, and you go, oh, okay, and there's 8 minutes left now. We're in the fourth. Okay, this could be interesting.
And Cooper got hot from there towards that in that that fourth quarter.
And so my gripe with this whole game, I mean, I have actually written this down as well. Another one, just like the Eagles Caledonia, 87-90. So Caledonia only up by 3 with a minute left.
Yeah.
That's a fun game.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a fun game to watch. My problem with it was the colours. And I said this off air before. I don't understand this. It's the second time I've moaned about this.
It's the same teams.
It's the same teams. Why are Surrey at home with a light background, all painted on the Surrey Sports Park, the walls?
Yeah, like a baby blue, sky blue.
It's a baby blue, sky blue. That's their colour kit. Why are they saying, oh, well, we're going to play in the dark blue kit, which you normally associate with Caledonia?
Yep.
And we're playing against Caledonia, so that's confusing enough. And then we'll get Caledonia to wear their away kit, which is a light blue, which is what we normally play in.
Yeah, it's
literally like, oh, we're just playing swapsies. Those refs, I don't care how well, or I mean, obviously there can't be favoritisms between refs and stuff, but at some point you can freeze frame. You know, I tell anyone who's listening to go and just watch some highlights, just hit pause, and just on a screen you think, is that player's arm or that player's arm?
Yeah, especially when like the lane's crowded, it's really difficult to identify one person from another.
As soon as they split apart, and the thing you pointed out as well, when on the corner, there's some of the other players.
Yeah, the guys that are on the bench.
And they're on the bench, and they're standing up, and they're like pointing out whatever. You think that's great. But that would completely confuse as well, because then you've got someone else in the same colour kit, but because they're on the side where there's a giant wall.
Yeah. The contrast is different.
The contrast is different, and there's nothing. It's just a giant sky blue wall, so they really stand out there. And to be a ref on that, it must be. I really sympathise with them. I don't sympathise with refs, but I really sympathise with them, and I don't understand what the rule. Now, you said it was black and white TVs.
Well, I know it used to be like that with football, so the teams had to wear kits that would either come up as dark or light on a black and white TV, and that's how teams chose their kits. Because black and white TVs are completely redundant now, I don't know whether the same rules are in play, but it would sort of make sense that you'd have a dark kit and a light kit. Yes, the Scorchers kit is a dark blue, and the one they were playing in, it was a dark blue, and Caledonia's kit was a light blue. However, the difference in shade isn't that drastic that one appears dark and one appears light. They both,
and especially when literally the same teams play
in opposing colours
as well. You think, I just don't understand the mentality that if you're a home team playing your light blue kit, just play. Why are you playing in the dark blue? If that means you're both playing in your home kits, who cares? It makes, if you said what colour is Caledonia, well, that'll be a dark blue. Which one was Surrey? It'll be a light blue. No, it just baffled me. I mean, I'm not saying you necessarily have to have a white kit or a black kit to make it obvious.
No, not that extreme, but
they must have a third kit.
I think all of the teams have got a third kit now.
So I don't get it. I just don't understand it.
It can't even be, because they must, in the BBL, I mean, my son plays under 12s National League. They, between them, the coaches and admin staff, before the game's played, they've decided what colour kits they're going to play in. They have a conversation between them, and they say, right, we're going to play in blue, you can play in yellow, or orange or whatever your colours are, but enough that you never get clashing colours in those. There must be something where they have to go to the BBL execs and whatnot and say, right, on this fixture, on this date, when we're playing at this court, we're going to be playing in this kit and our opponent's going to be playing in this kit. And then it must get signed off. So it can't just be that they turn up and the kit man says, oh, I've got this kit for today.
No.
It must be something that's defined. I would hazard a guess that when they put the league fixtures together at the start of the season, the kits that they're playing in are decided at that point.
It might be. I mean, even without knowing it, it's just weird because the kits are just, they've just taken the polar opposite kits and gone, your home kit is our away kit and our away kit's your home kit.
What we were saying, the easiest thing to identify was the size of the numbers on the kits.
Yeah.
That Scorchers have got big numbers and
very big numbers.
Caledonia have got smaller numbers. That's the one thing that was a big identifier or an easy way to distinguish them.
I prefer the numbers on Caledonia, but you can't read the names because it's like the EuroLeague where it's just very like boxed, but at the same time at least they have the individual ones, because I think some people don't have the name on, or if they do have the name on, it's just crammed and it doesn't.
Well, I think some of the Surrey players, some of the new intake this year don't have their names on their kits. So some of the players have their names, others don't, just have a number.
Yeah.
I think requirement wise you only have to have a number on the kit because obviously that's then on the score sheet.
That's all you need.
So if someone commits a foul, scores a point, it can be logged.
I guess as well, if you have a player who was playing that number, then they've moved on or they're gone away, you get a new player come and replace.
I guess, you may well have had kits
Here's
in somebody else's name. Yeah, in fact, saying that, I remember early in the season, I did see somebody who had a kit with a number, and then what looked like a panel stitched over where the previous player's name was.
You couldn't have someone else's name on because that's misrepresentation, isn't it? But yeah, so go. I would recommend go and watch that game because your brain would just melt watching it. It's really, especially if, like me, I'm a grown adult, kind of sometimes. I was watching it with headphones on my phone. Yeah. Because that's what you do.
Rather than watching it on a big screen.
Exactly. You got the big screen over there, but you go, no, I'm putting my daughter to bed, so I'm going to watch it on a tiny screen. And you do that, and you're thinking, no, what is going on?
You need that on the TV.
Yeah, it's just, and then you see it on the TV, you see it on I look at high def, you think, it does my head in. But anyway, so moving on from that game, I thought we've got 4 games in. There's been a couple of okay-ish games and a couple of kind of interesting, but the one sort of, what's a common theme was that I wouldn't necessarily have predicted how each of these games would have gone.
No, there's been some surprising ones. Not necessarily the results, but the
way the game played.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just, I thought that would be a much better game. This wasn't.
One would be a run or walk over, or what have you, but it's not.
Exactly. And this was a really good game. And especially because I think Caledonia at this position, Scorchers at this position, and they just kept getting back into the game. And you think, oh, okay, and they're at home and the crowd was there. And
Surrey do have a good crowd as well.
They've got a great crowd, and they've got obviously one of the smaller venues. And you have this, when you see it on TV, I think what they've done really well about this, and it is relevant because there's one coming up I'm going to moan about, is definitely they've painted that wall and it's, a horrific bright blue, but they've put all the logos and stuff around it. But you can tell there's a wall of people behind and it's just shouting straight at that position.
I do wonder why they don't have the camera set up the other side sometimes so that you can see the crowd as well.
The only thing I can think of is that they haven't got the depth on the lens.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because it only looks like it's maybe 8-10 foot from courtside to that wall. Yeah, and we've talked about it many, many times, and it would never go away. The biggest problem we have in the UK is we don't have venues. Yeah, or venues built with spectators in mind.
When you look at that Eagles Caledonia game, when you go look at any of those sort of games, even actually Patriots and Cheshire in the pavilions, like they're big stadiums that can hold places.
Yeah.
Can you get 2,000 people in? Easy, no problem. And you've got people at the end sitting in bleachers. You've got nice big bleachers. You've got plenty of standing room and stuff. That's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
3,000 people, that shouldn't be an issue. There's no venues around. We just don't have that. Whereas you go to other countries, they'll have venues for 10,000, or you've got the American college ones, they're monstrous. But that's our biggest problem in the UK. We don't have those big venues. And then the ones we do are only dotted in, especially in the south.
Yeah.
because
few and far between.
Few and far between, and try find the land to build something like that.
Well, that's it. Strangely enough, I was taking my dog for a walk just the other day, and I was thinking, if we were to have a BBL team in Portsmouth, where would the venue be? And
it'd be back in the old Mountbatten Centre at the moment.
Well, I think it would be at the moment. However, there's so many things that I think would have to be done with that court to bring it up to spec. The venue, the size, yep, you've got it. You can have bleachers on either side. I just wonder whether the hoops, the court itself, would be up to spec. It needs things doing with
you
it.
definitely have to be, the teams and the venues, but then you find a mutually beneficial thing, which is where in America, when we talked to Simon, and he was talking about things in France and stuff.
Yeah, the setups over
the
there.
way that they do things in other countries, they're very much tied in with the local governments. They're very much tied in with the schools and the universities. Ravlin's a lovely venue. If someone at any point had actually sat down and thought, what if we had 2 sets of bleachers and had a middle basketball court?
Yeah.
Ravlin would host probably 800 without even batting an eyelid.
Yeah, easily.
Without batting an eyelid, you could have easily done that. But just no one thought of it.
But then it's one of those things. Could you do it retrospectively? Could you retrofit the equipment you need? Yes, you'd have to
take your pockets.
That's it. It's the money. And the university is one of the biggest earners in the city. It's one of the biggest employers in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to convince them that don't just have it as a sports venue for the university? Yes, I know they rent the pool out to other clubs for swimming lessons and things like that. My kids go there. Yes, they rent the hall out to external clubs for, badminton and other sports. But if you could set up so you've got that middle court for basketball, yes, you'd probably have to invest in 2 mobile hoops, but there would be a way to get it to work. So yes, you could have 2 full basketball courts in there, but then for game day for the city's team, move to that central court and have different markings and mobile hoops and bleachers on either side. It is doable, but I know those mobile hoops are somewhere between like 15 and 20 grand a pop. So yeah, you do need deep pockets for it.
Yeah, and if you're talking about doing that, you could probably put that money towards doing something else at Mountbatten, where they'd say,
yeah, you've already got the
flooring,
bleachers.
We can get other bits, we can do other stuff, we've got central bits.
Yeah.
So suddenly that money makes a difference.
How do you invest it? What's the better investment?
Where do people park? Where do people go? It's so many things to think about. So yeah, that's the big challenge in the UK thing. I mean, we obviously listeners around the world, but finding an actual place that you can house people to come to an event. When people go to a basketball game, they enjoy it. And part of being at a game is an atmosphere.
Yeah,
and all the atmospheres come across when you watch them on TV, and you can hear the crowds, and you can hear people get excited. That's part of part of the sport.
Next season, I've vowed I'll go into the BBL finals with the playoffs. But I've said I'm definitely going to try and get to a few more BBL games. I'm going to go to Surrey. I'm going to go to Plymouth. I'm going to go to London and watch some more games live in person, because I've only seen, well, in fact, in recent years, haven't seen any. And it's a long time since I've seen a BBL game in person. The atmosphere.
Have you seen
electric.
more badminton games recently?
Oh, I've not watched any. I've seen them happen. I've not watched.
Seen them happen. Paul would be disgusted at you. So, anyway, we're talking about Surrey. They did really well. At the end of the day, they just couldn't hold off Caledonia. So, going into that next game, Bristol Flyers against Plymouth. Now, we've seen Plymouth play already. They played Cheshire. Cheshire just put the foot down and they didn't really take it off. It was always like 15, 20 points. And then just kept extending the lead. So Bristol Flyers against Plymouth, you thought, well, the Flyers were doing well at the beginning of the season. They had a load of injuries. And then, at the moment, they're 7th in the league. There's enough of a gap, 6-7 game gap between them and Plymouth. You would expect there would be a further part of game than it was.
No, definitely. It's again, Bristol are on paper a better team than Plymouth. They should easily win that game.
Plymouth's shots dropped. That's what my notes were. I just put slow but even start. They both just didn't really. It was a bit sloppy and a bit slow, and I don't know if it wasn't they weren't sure how to approach each other or something.
Oh, okay.
But Plymouth's shots just dropped. And that was all it was. And then you suddenly sort of thought, hang on a minute, how come they're up at this point and Plymouth were sort of just extend, and this is at Bristol as well, so this is an away game, and they were just picking up. Tevin Ollison, got to give him a shout out for a massive 3-point at the end of the Q2, and he made it like a 2-point game.
Oh, okay, close the gap.
So yeah, he was sort of closing that gap, and you know, Ollison's played really well this season, but just I don't know what it was. Bristol just no.
It's a strange game.
Now, have you seen Edie Johnson's shot from 3 quarters? Did you see
that?
Yes.
So yeah, but like from his own free throw line, one step beyond his own free throw line.
It's just funny because obviously this was a Bristol Flyers player in Bristol and just literally gone past the free throw line in his own half. It was the end of Q3 and he just went, I'm just going to launch it up. And it went in.
Yep.
Everyone erupted. That was a great, and you could see everyone. It was just, I love that. When you see that in the game, it just raised everyone's spirits. Yeah. And at that point still, you know, I think it brought it within 8 points, and that was 60-68. And that was at the end of Q3. So going into Q4, you think it's an 8-point game. The crowd spirits have been lifted.
But you'd hope the momentum from something like that to finish the quarter would pull you into the fourth quarter.
1 minute left. The score was 83-84. That's another game where it was literally just nail biting at the end. Yeah. But we did see the rest of that transmission. They didn't cut that
played that one properly.
Yeah. So 83-84 with 1 minute left. Plymouth ended on 89 points. Flyers didn't get another shot off.
They just managed to close it out.
Yep. They just literally that last minute, they just got. When we've said before in these other games, people have made poor shot selection and poor decisions. Plymouth did the absolute opposite.
Oh, okay.
And they just executed what they needed to and just got themselves a gap. Then they increased that gap.
Yeah.
And they stopped Bristol. And that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Extend, stop, extend again, done.
And it's another one. Plymouth, like we were saying earlier, they've got the potential. They've got players who can play really good basketball.
Yeah.
They just haven't seemed to be able to gel it and get it to work together. But in games when they do,
83-84 with a minute left.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and you know, if you're the Bristol Flyers at home and you're thinking we're 8 points down, we're now 1 point down. We've got one big shot.
The momentum's on your side as well. You've
crowd
brought it back.
You just wanted to do it, and Plymouth just put their foot down. They just went no. And so absolute massive credit to Plymouth for that one, especially for an away game. Now, obviously, Bristol playing at the Bristol Park, but they're getting a stadium built at the moment.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
So I think they have got a very, very, very small crowd. It's only about 800 to 1,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite a small crowd.
It seems loud when you watch the game.
Because it's one of the sports parks sort of places.
I guess it's enclosed.
Yeah, so again, it was a bit like Surrey's, where you're facing a giant wall.
Yep.
And you're getting that big echo, but because it sounds loud, it's big and echoey.
Yeah.
But their fans are really up for it, and I love the Bristol clear. Definitely got a soft spot for the logo. When I showed Paul that's the plane, it's coming out.
Yeah, another one.
The more you look at it, you think they've got that Miami kind of kit.
Yeah,
I think they could do something really nice. They lost some big players with injuries, and I think Bristol, they tried to do some stuff. I think the NBL in Europe this year. Again, they just struggled because of players and injuries.
Flyers just didn't take off.
No. Oh, God, that's terrible.
Proper dad joke.
That is... You've mentioned badminton twice, and then that. Fucking hell, you're getting banned. Right, so moving on. Leicester versus the Eagles.
It should be a tight game.
Should be a tight game. Was a tight game. And at one point, I thought the Eagles were going to lose, and I was going to have to send Keith an abusive message laughing at him, which I know he always appreciates. But Leicester, straight out the gate, they were up for it.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they're up 5 points sort of going into Q2, which doesn't sound a lot. But Leicester up 5 points against the Eagles, and they were playing in Leicester. And it's called the Mattioli, I think it is. Mattioli Arena.
Oh, yeah.
I always get the name wrong. But you think they're a home game and they're up 5 points going into Q2 against the Eagles, who are a tough team. That's a good place to be. But there's a massive, massive block in Q2, and I think that swayed it. Malcolm Dalpesh.
Oh, yes.
That one. I mean, he goes up.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you said.
You see the panic on
the
jump. He went, oh, no.
But what do you do? Is like, do you try and dish that off? But he went and almost tried to go down for a pump fake.
I think
arm
where
just came down like it was like one of those one-arm bandit slot machines, wasn't it? It just came down like, no, get out.
All those lucky cats.
Yeah.
But where I think where he'd cuffed the ball, he'd sort of got himself in a position where he couldn't release it. He had the ball tucked.
Yeah.
It was a good block.
I made a note at the time, 7 minutes in Q2, or 7 minutes left of Q2, go in, check that out. That is an absolute block and a half. But that changed that pace.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I won't say it wasn't straight after that, but it was almost like a shock.
Switched the momentum.
Yeah. And that block just made them, hang on a minute, that we can stop them.
Yeah, yeah. We're in this game still.
But it's the defensive part. And I think that was the key, because the Eagles, offensively, fine. But it was the defense that they just seemed to be like, why are we not actually just physically stopping these people?
It's a strange one, because Dalpesh had a big game there. He also had a big game earlier in the week.
Oh, against Caledonia, yeah.
And I'm baffled as to why they're still bringing him off the bench.
Don't know. Keith said, he actually messaged me and said, I've stood next to him. He's massive. And I'm like, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Defoe, who tends to start at centre for them, is big and is possibly taller, but that's not always what you need.
Sometimes you need the attitude.
Yeah. And Dalpesh just coming out and scoring 20, 25 off the bench, getting a couple of blocks, countless rebounds. His strength and, like you're saying, his attitude, he's a fighter. I think the Eagles need to start him, if I'm honest. They games where they're trying to fight back from behind, I wonder whether they would be in front in the first place if they were to get him to start. I don't know.
So this is why I say this is a kind of a delayed shock, really, for them. Because where that was like 7 minutes left of the quarter, when you're going into Q3, so by half time, Leicester were up 12 points. And you think, well, hang on a minute, but surely that just going that would maybe change it and they'd get back. They were only up 5 going at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Why they've extended that lead. But it just flipped it, because when he went into Q4, 67-66. So Q3, they came out the gate at half time and they went, okay, we need to change. So whatever their game plan was, basically H1.
Yeah.
They just went in and thought, hang on a minute, we've got to just put more bodies on this. We've got to do something different. And their rhythm was off, and they were doing these little spot plays and spot defensive things, but they weren't. They came out, and by Q4, different story.
Since the trophy break, I don't know if you've noticed it as well, but there's definitely more games within games, if that makes any sense. You're getting games where teams are going out ahead in the first half, and then the second half is, like the old cliche, it is a game of two halves. You're getting a completely different second half to the first.
Oh yeah, you could actually. I watched one the other day and thought this looks like a familiar game, and I genuinely thought I'd gone somewhere wrong on YouTube and was looking at something.
I was watching something you previously watched.
Yeah, like it was their previous matchup.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought I was looking at it, because sometimes I just search, and I don't know if any of you do it on YouTube, and you think, oh, I know, I'm going to watch the...
you don't necessarily check the date, you just look at the matchup.
Exactly. I'm going Leicester versus Eagles.
Yeah. And you end up picking the wrong game.
Yeah, and you go, oh, that's the wrong game. Have I seen this one before? And, look, I'm not proud. I just looked for the red line. Have I watched it? Yeah. Okay, well, I've done that.
It's 3/4 of the way through. Oh, yeah, that must have been one.
I must have watched that and gone, oh, God. Which bit, if it's that got to the end, I either watched it or I fell asleep. One of the two. Which one is it? But I was watching thinking, this is just really a very familiar game, because, again, it's probably the teams know each other. They know what they're going. They know how they're going to... They've watched some B-roll or whatever it is and think they're coming in this way. So I just really liked that game. Ado, massive shot at the end of Q3. Huge shot. Changed it for the Eagles. And then I've actually written down, it was Charles Green was 4 for 4 on his 3 points.
And he's not normally a 3-point shooter. No. Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah, it's nuts.
And it just came out of nowhere. It's just like, bang, that's number 1. We're like, oh, that's pretty cool. 2. Okay. And then the fourth one is like, what?
Why isn't someone on him?
Why,
Why is he shooting?
Why are they letting him? But his last one, when he got that 4 for 4, that was, he actually had to show, it wasn't just a here's an easy free shot. He actually worked for it. And then went, oh, I'm going to take that 4. But that was in Q4, and that pushed them to take the lead. And then from there, I mean, Eagles wrote it and kept that 5, got up to 5 points.
Yeah,
as a victory. And I would say at the end of that one, it was a bit of a, why is no one else doing anything? Why is no one sort of fouling? Why is no one doing anything else? Why is no? And you think with 4 or 5 points, again, it's almost like that Eagles Caledonia thing. If you've got this amount of time left,
press, push,
do something with it. But it seems like they just, I don't know if it's that they're not aware of it, but they're thinking, oh, no, we're going to do this play. We're still rigid in doing this play. And they're almost against free balling.
Yeah.
Or hero ball in a way.
I was going to say, there's only 1 or 2 teams in the BBL that will allow someone to, well, not allow, that's not the right word, where you've got someone who will end up playing hero ball.
Yep.
A lot of the teams do try to sit back, right, this is our playbook, this is what we're running by, this is how we play our basketball game.
Well, that is exactly what you see in that Caledonia Eagles game.
When Quade Green just goes, you know what?
Yeah, and at the very end, when you see they've got, something like 17 seconds on the clock, and they've pressed for timeout to get back the possession and have it up court, and you've still got Caledonia. He's still there with his clipboard going, right, you're going here, you're going here. You go, dude, you're up. All you've got to do is just block. But he's like, no, I'm telling you what we're going to be doing. He's still running the court and running plays. You go, I respect that.
It's not a negative point. Being able to stick to your guns is a great thing to be able to do in the game.
Got to live and die by it if you're doing that, though, haven't you?
True.
And
true.
If you are saying, like we've seen, I would say Leicester, could they have won that? Yes, they were at home. And they did have the advantage, and by the time it got to Q3, they'd let the Eagles get back in.
Yeah.
And then the Eagles just sort of pushed down, and Leicester just couldn't. It wasn't that they couldn't overcome it. It just seemed to be that flow. The Eagles then controlled the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was it. He's like, you let them in.
But when you've got someone like Taj Green scoring threes, which he doesn't normally do, I wonder how much. Exactly, you're thinking, right, I need to step back, prepare for him to drive, prepare for him to make a cut. Box him out. Oh no, what's he doing? He's shooting a 3-pointer. Oh, okay. I'm not prepared for that at all. Next play down, he does the same thing again. Because if I remember right, there was only like 1 or 2 other scorers in that run. Those 4 threes were in a really short period of time.
Yeah, it was a really short period of time. We just kept banging them in, and it wasn't like you say. He's someone you go. He's inside and he's going to be causing people issues. Not he's standing outside and hitting a 3. So again, it's nice in. I think he's a great player, and it's nice seeing a bit of depth, a change with his character, definitely. But yeah, that was a good win.
Yeah.
So Leicester's this week, to their credit, have had some tough games. Against the Sharks, they pulled it through, but then they go against the Eagles and they just miss out. But they're 2 actually hard
tough
games,
teams to play,
2 tough teams to play. In the same way, the Eagles have played Leicester and Caledonia, again, 2 very energetic teams. So. They have those were good games to watch. I enjoyed watching them. Unlike the next game, Cheshire versus Bristol.
I'm actually glad I didn't watch this one live.
No, I don't. Looking at Cheshire's court makes me sad. That's all I'm going to say. It's at a local sports hall, and you can tell it's a local sports hall. And I genuinely think when they put that on the telly, it really doesn't come across well.
It's almost, so you know what I was saying with the Scorchers, where I don't understand why they don't have the camera facing the crowd.
Or do a different angle.
Just
do like the 2 3/4 and pin them up or something.
Because the Cheshires, they shoot from almost ground level, isn't it? But it's looking at the fans. So you get atmosphere from the fans, but it does make it, not, I don't want to say it cheapens the product, but you know what I mean?
No, it does, 100%.
Okay.
You have, this is a sports hall, Universities have sports halls. They're amazing. Raven's a sports hall. Amazing. There's nothing wrong saying, oh, this is a sports hall. This is a community sports leisure centre. Great.
Yeah.
Manchester play in the National Basketball Centre. It's got 7 courts or 8 courts, whatever it is.
Crazy.
Yeah. They play there. Okay. But this looks like a sports hall that's in a very small community.
Yeah.
Cheshire's quite a rich place.
It's a fairly big place as well.
Very big place, a very affluent place. Not a million miles away from Manchester either.
No.
You know, I'm not saying that they should co-share, but the distance between the Lakers and the Clippers is probably not that different to Manchester and Cheshire. You could argue.
Yeah, for their actual training grounds.
For their actual training grounds and everything, you go, well, if they can all co-share, like, you've got the National Basketball Centre with a big giant court. Like,
you could probably even play on one of the other courts, not the same court as,
exactly.
as the Giants play on.
Yeah, I just don't play in that sports place anymore. You've got to do something about that badly, because it's like no, we're on this arenas thing again, but I don't understand why someone doesn't, like they've done in Caledonia.
Yep. Get an investor who comes in
and you get someone coming. I mean, Manchester are looking for a buyer at the moment, obviously, but currently, why there's got to be warehouses around.
Yeah. Something you could convert and modify into.
We got someone who does flooring, and they do all the basketball courts. They're going to be coming on the show soon.
Okay.
Get in contact with some of them. Get in contact with someone who does bleachers, and just for a season, you go, right, how much does it cost to rent this place? This. Okay, great. There you go. Done. Just do that.
Yeah.
It would look better. It looks so pony.
And for such a good team as well.
Yeah, well, congratulations, you won the trophy playing in your nan's leisure centre. That's what it looks like. And it's like, if you're trying to make this a really nice kit, and you've got places like that Virtue Stadium, the Newcastle one,
that is
beautiful. Nice. Caledonia, you've got that one, and it's lovely, and that's like even still temporary compared to what they're building.
They're extending on that, aren't they?
Obviously, the Lions have the copper box, but it's not theirs.
No,
but still, that's a lovely place. Leicester's court, that looks really nice. Manchester's court obviously looks really nice.
Just a quick question on Manchester: have they always played at that court, or is that one that since they effectively went into receivership and the league took them on, did they start playing there then? I don't know the history of the. I know.
I don't know.
They've got a deep history in the club, but I don't know whether they've always played at the basketball sort of.
I understood they're always associated with the National Basketball Centre.
It would make sense.
Yeah, I understood that was always the case. Whether that's always been where they've played, I don't know.
But I mean, they were a huge club for a long time back in the 90s and early 2000s. They were the team to beat, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nick Nurse was their coach, wasn't he, for a while?
Yeah. And, when you speak to, I think when we were speaking to Colin Irish, talking about Manchester and everything, and there's certain teams, that's one of the things that we've talked about with Plymouth, actually, like where they're losing their place and where they're going to play, etc. There's someone who's had a tenure in the league for a very long time.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason that they were taken on by the BBL was because the BBL thinking, right, this is one of the cornerstones of British basketball. We can't lose that team. Even if the team goes into receivership, we have to keep that team going for the BBL's sake as much as anything else.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a very interesting the politics and the what is going on behind the scenes in the whole BBL. Maybe we'll spin back around to that at the end of this. But yeah, that game, in short, boring, waste of time. Don't watch it. Cheshire versus Bristol. Bristol won.
And in a game where you'd expect Cheshire to do it, even still.
Cheshire at home in their Nan Sports Hall. Everyone's wearing the old P kit, plimsolls. It was all. I won't say the words that I used to describe what the court looked like. But all I'll say is this: Q4, it was 72-44 to Bristol.
Well, all I'm going to say is that I've seen local league games where teams have scored way more than 42.
Cheshire Phoenix had 44 going into Q4. 44 points.
Where they've got,
that's not even 15 points a quarter.
Had they guaranteed second place in the league at that point? I'm wondering whether they've just taken their foot off the gas because they know they don't need to do any more. It's just, for a team that should be up there.
But if you're tactical then, and you're thinking that way, well then, what's Bristol doing? Because Bristol at the moment are in 7th position.
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, at the moment Cheshire is in second place, and these are the guys that you're going to be playing.
But even resting your best players, you should still be able to.
You should not have 44 points by Q3. Unless you said, oh, we're literally running the bench and none of our starters are going to play today.
Yeah.
44? What's that?
Unless it's the opposite of the Plymouth game where all their shots were sinking. If they were just having an off day and shots weren't going down, I don't know.
Q4, they got 31 points.
So they can score.
Yeah, they just didn't bother.
Just didn't wake up for that game.
I just don't understand. I just think it's... And yet, Bristol, what did they get? Oh, they got 17. So hang on, you got 31 and you got 17 in Q4. Why didn't you do that for the rest of the time?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I guess a bit of urgency came in and they realised they needed to actually play.
I don't know. Maybe the sports hall went on and put 50p in the electric machine or something. I don't know. But yeah, all I could say was that was just a sad game to watch. Bristol, it's always nice seeing them win, but that wasn't a win. No.
That was Chester just allowing them to win.
Yeah, that's why it was just actually frustrating. So the final game of this week, or rather the week just passed, was Manchester versus Sharks. And this was in Manchester.
Yes.
In the aforementioned National Basketball Centre, whatever they call it. Is that what they call it?
The National Basketball Arena?
Yeah, I think it's something like that. So it sounds grand.
Yes.
I've only been there a couple of times, but it's big, nothing else. Yeah, Sheffield totally dominated that. Totally dominated.
Again, you wouldn't expect it with the players they've got. However, Manchester just don't seem to have performed this season.
No, they've been rubbish.
And it's not for lack of ability or lack of trying. I've seen them play really hard. They've had a lot of games where it's been close and they've just been pipped. But they seem to have done it against top of the table, mid-table, bottom of the table, like across the board. They've had teams they just don't seem to be able to put away.
Well, I noticed that Sheffield they took charge of the game and they just kept the lead. By the time it was Q3, it was like 10, 12 points they were ahead just going into Q3. And they just kept it. I think it was, now I've got this down. This is Q4 start, 43-60.
Another one.
Yeah. Now, Manchester ended on 64 points. And you think, hang on a minute. So if Sheffield started in 60 and they ended on 87, they put 27 in. Okay, in a quarter, 27. That's pretty respectable.
Yeah.
In the Q4 as well. Yeah, you put a little bit more, a little bit. 43-64.
That's nuts. I mean, I know they play 8 minutes more in the game, but in the NBA, there's been how many players that have scored 70 points this season?
Why have you got 43 points and you're starting Q4?
It's crazy.
And then that's Manchester. And you think, okay, that's Manchester. They're right down near the bottom.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh, hold on. Cheshire started Q4 with 44 points.
And they're second.
Yeah. What's going on?
Someone's put Clingfilm over the basket or something like that.
I don't know. I don't. The only thing that I can think is they're either just taking their foot off or something. But the games were rubbish.
Yeah.
The quality of the basketball, those two games was terrible.
It's strange because often low-scoring games are down to good defense, people making stops. These ones just seem to be teams unable to score.
I promise you, watch Cheshire versus Bristol.
Yeah.
Watch that highlight. You only have to watch the highlight. I won't subject you to the whole thing. Just watch that. And if you can genuinely give feedback without using expletives or just crying, you've done well. Because you just think, this is what am I watching here?
Against teams that have had really good games this season, really exciting, enthralling games.
Look, now I'm not saying I want to see Cheshire go out there and humiliate. Not asking for that.
But make it competitive.
If you've got 44 points going into the fourth quarter, there is something very, very wrong.
Especially when you've got 3 players that easily score 20 points in a game.
Yeah. The last game you went into with 78.
Yeah.
And you ended on 102
Yeah.
and you think, all right, pretty respectable. That was the last. And who were they against? Oh, they were against the Patriots, who had only one below, effectively. Or two below, rather, Bristol. But I think there's I'm not saying not responsibility, but you got people who are going and paying their money to go watch these things. The same with NBA players, the same with any professional sports person. You got to turn up for the game.
Yeah.
And I know that they have things where they rest players and all this sort of nonsense. You've only played 32 games this season. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying I could do it. There's no chance of that. But this is hard.
But if that's your job, yeah,
Yeah.
you should be able to do it. You should be able to run those games.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. That is the end of this part. But do not worry, because coming soon is the second part of this episode, and it will be available soon.